All right, so we started out with our volume examples in class today, and we talked about a couple of rectangular prisms and how to find the area of the base, which is the rectangle, which is length times width times the height. So number 3, we were looking at a prism, but this time it's not a rectangular prism. This is still going to be a prism, but it's going to be, has a base that is a triangle, so a triangular prism. All right, so when we think about this, we're still going to be using our formula for volume is big B times H. However, because I have a triangle, my area of a triangle is going to be length times width divided by 2. So again, my bases are the two pieces that are parallel to each other. So when I'm looking at this is going to be either my length or my width or my width or my length, and then my height is the distance between the two bases, which is 17. So when I actually go to find the volume here, we're going to say my base, the area of my base is length times width, so 2 times 1, but we're going to divide that by 2 because it's a triangle, times the height of the whole thing, which is 17. All right, so if we pull Desmos into this, obviously I have 2 times 1 is 2 divided by 2. Oh, I really don't even need Desmos here. So 2 times 1 is 2 divided by 2 is 1. So my volume, 1 times 17, is still going to be 17. And again, always make sure your units match up. All right, so for number 4, it says concrete can be purchased by a cubic yard. So we already can see here that we're talking about yards. How much will it cost to pour a slab 18 feet by 18 feet by 4 feet by 4 inches for a patio if the concrete costs $41 per cubic yard? Okay, so if we're talking about concrete, we're talking about pouring a slab, we're talking about some form of prism at this point. So if we're talking about the prism, we're talking about length times width times height. However, when I'm looking at my length and my width and my height, I have lots of units that are in this problem. Okay, so we have a rectangular prism. We need to do big B times H, which my big B is the area of my base, which is going to be length times width times height. Okay, now everything is based off of yards, so I need to convert all of these units into yards. So first thing I need to know is I need to know that there's 3 feet in 1 yard. Okay, so 18, I would convert that and I would say 18 divided by 3, that's going to be 6 yards. Same thing for this one is 6 yards. So we got a 6 yard by 6 yard, but then we have a 4 inches, okay? So 4 inches, so we've got to convert this as well. So if I think about inches, there's 12 inches in 1 foot, and then 3 feet in 1 yard. So if I'm looking, I would say for the inches, I would say, okay, I have 4 divided by 12, that's going to be 1/3. But then there's 3 feet in 1 yard, so I'm going to divide that by 3 again, which is going to give me 1/9. So I have 6 yards times 6 yards times 1/9 of a yard for my volume. So that was all about converting over. So my volume here is going to be my length, which is 6 yards, my width is 6 yards, and my height, which is 1/9. So we have 6 times 6 is 36, and then 36 divided by 9, I have a volume of 4 yards cubed for my volume. But it says that it's $41 per cubic yard. So we would say 4 times 41, and that's going to give me $164, which is D. Okay, so be careful about your units, and you got to know how to convert into inches, feet, and yards. All right, so looking at number 5, it says the volume of a cylinder. So remember, a cylinder is a prism essentially, but it has circles as its bases. So when we look at our cylinder, think about like a can or something like that. It has circle bases, okay? So it already tells me that the volume of my cylinder is 980 pi. It tells me the height of my cylinder is 20 inches. So the height, remember, goes between the two bases. So my base here is the circles top and bottom. They want to know what is the radius. So we're going to have to work backwards on this one. So when we think about the volume of a cylinder, it's still going to be big B times H, but because my base is a circle, it's going to be pi r squared times the height. So we know my volume is 980 pi. We want to find the radius, and we know our height is in 20 inches. So all of my units match up. I just need to simplify this. So I have 980 pi, and I'm going to say this is 20 pi, put that together, r squared. So I'm going to divide by 20 pi. And once I divide by 20 pi, that's going to simplify so that we can take the square root. So we have 980 pi divided by 20 pi, and we get 49. So if I have 49 equals r squared, we want to find just the radius, so we're going to take the square root. Obviously the radius, we're talking about length, so we're going to take the positive version of it. So my radius is 7. So we just had to use our formula and work backwards. All right, so this one says find the volume of the cylinder and leave it in terms of pi. So leave it in terms of pi means we multiply all the numbers together and leave pi in my answer. So I have my bases. So my base here, we have a circle here and a circle here. So my cylinder, again, it's a prism, just has circle bases. So if we want to find the volume, my volume is big B times H, but my base is a circle, so it's going to be pi r squared times the height. Okay, so my height is the distance between the two bases, which is 8 meters. So we're going to substitute in what we know. So we know that we have pi. My radius is 3.8. That's halfway between the center to the outside of the circle, times my height is 8. Now, if we leave it in terms of pi, that means we multiply all the numbers, so 3.8 squared times 8, and that's going to give me 115.52, but they said leave pi in the answer in terms of pi. So we leave pi in our answer, which makes our correct answer B. All right, so again, we're finding the volume. We have a cylinder, so we're just kind of practicing this cylinder. Make sure we have it. So we have volume equals big B times H. We have a circle as our base, so that's going to be pi r squared times the height. Our height goes between, once again, the two. So volume equals, they're in the same units, so we don't have to worry about converting anything. So we have pi times 5 squared times 14. This one, again, the original instructions apply to it, so we're going to leave it in terms of pi. So 5 squared is 25 times 14. So my volume is 350 pi inches cubed. All right, so for our next one, we're looking at number 8. It says cylinder A. So we have a cylinder. We have cylinder A has a radius of 1 meter and a height of this. Cylinder B has a radius of 2 meters and a height of this. Find the ratio of the volume of cylinder A to cylinder B. So basically, if we want to find the ratio, that means we're going to need to divide the volume of cylinder A to the volume of cylinder B. So we just got to find two separate volumes here. Okay, so if I'm going to find the volume of cylinder A, so again, volume of the cylinder is big B times H, which again is pi r squared times H. All right, so for cylinder A, I'm going to find the volume for cylinder A, and my volume for cylinder A is going to be pi 1 squared, and the height was 4. So I'm just going to leave it in terms of pi for right now. so I don't have to round. So this is going to be 4 pi. Then we have cylinder B. Cylinder B is pi, their radius was 2 squared times 4. So that equals, so 2 squared is 4, 4 times 4 is 8, so that's 8 pi. So volume A is 4 pi, divided by volume B is 8 pi. And of course, if we simplify, that's going to be 1 to 2. So 1 to 2 is my ratio. All right, number 9 says find the height of the cylinder. So again, they give us the volume. That's super important that they're going to give us the volume and they give us the radius. They want us to find the height of the cylinder. So our formula is big B times H, which is going to be pi r squared times the height. We're looking for the height. We know the volume. The volume is 271.4. Then we have pi, our radius is 6 squared times the height. So essentially what I can do is I can go ahead and simplify that if I want to and say that this is 36 pi times the height, and I'm simply just going to divide 36 pi to the other side. And of course we're going to have to round here. This is not going to simplify nicely. So we're going to say 127.4 divided by 36 pi. So we get the height is approximately 2.4 inches. And again, I know that this is correct. All of my units are the same. My volume was in inches. My radius was in inches. All right, so now we're stepping up to our next type. So we're kind of moving out of the cylinders and the prisms, and now we have a pyramid. So remember, the formula for a pyramid is 1/3 the base times the height. And again, the base is still the area of the base. You just have to determine what type of base you have. So in this particular problem, our base is a rectangle. So we know that the base is going to be length times width. So everything is in centimeters. We're going to say 1/3 the length. So my length is 11. My width is 11. So really my bases are square if their length and the width are the same. Times the height. Now the height is always going to be the height from the point directly at the top to the, and it's going to be the height, which is the perpendicular height all the way to the base. So my height here is going to be 15. And again, all we do is put that all together. So we have 11 times 11 times 15, and that's going to give me 605 centimeters cubed. Now, if you look at number 11 is different because they don't actually give us the height from our point at the very top where all of my sides come together to the base. However, what I can do is I can say, okay, I know that I have a slanted distance here, I have that perpendicular distance here, and I could say, okay, well, can I do the Pythagorean theorem? So if I do the Pythagorean theorem here, because I have a right triangle, this whole distance here, this whole distance here is 10. Well, if I'm going from the center to where that point is to the outside, we know that this distance has to be 5 because that's half of it. So we want to find the height. So I'm going to do Pythagorean theorem here. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So my height, we'll just call that the h. That's a squared. My b squared is 5. And my c squared is my hypotenuse, which is 13. All right, so we have h squared, we have 25, and 13 squared is 169. Okay, so we're going to subtract that 25, so we're going to say 169 minus 25. And I have h squared equals 144, which I will take the square root of, and we're going to use the positive value, so that's going to be 12. So I now know the height from the point at the top where the sides come together to the bottom is 12. So now I'm going to say my volume is 1/3 the area of the base times the height. And again, my base is a rectangle. So if my base is a rectangle, then we're going to be looking at finding the length times the width. All right, so we need to multiply the length times the width, and then 1/3 and the height, and we found the height to be 12. I do want to go back and reference the instructions, and actually the instructions were missing from both of these. So the instructions for this one, it should say that this is a square pyramid. There was instructions missing here, and I apologize. So this should be a square pyramid, which means my length and my width are the same. So this is going to be 10 times 10. So we got 1/3. My length is 10 times my width is 10 times my height, which we found to be 12. So we got 10 times 10 is 100 times 12. That's going to give, oops. We have 1,200, which of course we're going to divide that by 3 or multiply it by 1/2. So my volume is going to be 400 feet cubed. It says, what is the max volume of the pyramid that can fit inside of a cube with a side length of 18 centimeters? So we're comparing a lot of different things here. So if we're looking at, it says the max volume of a pyramid. So remember, a pyramid has the point at the top, and it says if it fits inside a cube. So a cube is going to have a square base on both sides. So it says the side length of my cube is going to be 18 by 18, but that means my height is also going to be 18. So if we're talking about a cube, that means they're all the same side. So the volume of my cube is length times width times height. So that's going to be 18 times 18 times 18. Okay, so basically what we're doing is we're saying 18 cubed. So we know the volume of that is going to be 5,832 is my volume for the cube. But remember, it says the max volume of a pyramid. So the pyramid formula is 1/3 the base times the height. So a pyramid is 1/3 of the cube. So if it's 1/3 of the cube, we can take that and we can divide that by 3. So we're going to take and we're going to say 5,832 that we got from the other, 1/3 of that, and we should get 1,944. Because remember, when we talk about them having the same base, a pyramid, 3 pyramids with the same base can fit inside of a cube with that same size. All right, so then we have the volume of a cone. So remember, the volume of a cone is the same thing. We have 1/3 the base times the height, but my base is a circle. So we have 1/3 pi r squared for the base times the height. So for this one, we have a radius. So our diameter is 18. So if we want the radius is half of that, which is 9. So pi 9 squared. And then my height is from the top all the way down to the circle, which is going to be 26. This does say round to the nearest tenth, so we're actually going to multiply pi into this problem. So I have 1/3 pi 9 squared times 26. So we get our volume is approximately the 2,205.4. Same thing here. They want us to find the volume. We have the volume is 1/3 of the base times the height. My base is pi r squared. So we have 1/3 pi, my radius is 8 squared, times the height, which is 17. And they are in the same units. We don't have to worry about that. So 1/3 pi. Then we have 8 squared times 17. And we get D. All right, and then the last thing we do is we come to the sphere. So the sphere is the ones that's kind of a little bit different. So it's going to be 4/3 pi r cubed times the height. So again, if we go back to our formula sheet, we have pi r, actually, sorry, I forgot that the height part is not included because the height is actually represented by an additional r. So we have 4/3 pi r cubed. Because the height that we're talking about, so our base is technically the circle in the middle. If you think about it like that, the base is what is that piece in the middle. So my height is the radius from the outside to the center. Okay, so that height is from the outside to the center, which essentially is going to be r squared times another r, which is r cubed. So the height is represented by the radius itself. So that's the reason the radius is r cubed. All right, so looking at this, we're going to be just plugging in what we know. So we have 4/3 pi, my radius is 9, so 9 cubed. And it looks like the answer choices are rounded. So we got 4/3 pi, 9 cubed. And we get 30.53. Round that up. So the diameter is 14. So if we want to find the radius, my radius is 7. So my volume is 4/3 pi r cubed. So we're going to say 4/3 pi, radius is 7 cubed. All right, so 4/3 pi 7 cubed. All right, so giving our answer to be C.